wanna sing? You okay? Okay. I'll call upon your name. Keep my eyes above the waves. Oceans rise, my soul trusts your embrace. And I am yours, you are mine. And I call upon your name. Keep my eyes above the waves. Oceans rise, my soul trusts in your embrace. And I am yours, you are mine. And I call upon your name. Keep my eyes above the waves. Oceans rise, my soul trusts in your embrace. And I am yours, you are mine. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. We walk upon the water wherever you call me. Take me deeper than my feet would ever want. My faith will be made strong in the presence of my Savior. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. We walk upon the waters wherever you call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever want. My faith will be made strong in the presence of my Savior. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. We walk upon the waters wherever you call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander. My faith will be made strong.
Hey everyone, it's Pastor James here, just coming at you from underneath somewhere. And some of you guys recognize exactly where I'm at. I have a little chore today, and so the little light said, hey, it's time to change your oil, so I'm changing my oil. And many of you have been in this situation before, and maybe others where you're changing other things. But as I was doing this, it actually really fit with what I wanted to talk about today. And if you're following in the one-year Bible, you guys know that we're in Samuel. And we're starting in chapter 5, and the Philistines had just captured the Ark of the Covenant. They had been in this war with God and with his people, and they finally won this battle, and so they were able to secure the Ark of the Covenant. They brought it back to their land, and what was happening was they brought it back to their land, and they set it up in their city of Dagon, or their main city here, and it says of Ashdod, and they carried the Ark into the temple of Dagon, which is their god. And they put it next to the idol. And what was happening was every morning they would wake up the next day and something would happen to the statue. One morning the statue fell over, and then they set it back up. And the next morning the statue's arms fell off. And then they were like, what's happening? And the next morning the statue's head fell off. And so something kept happening. And then after all of this happened, they still weren't quite sure what was happening. It says, then the Lord, in verse 6, began to afflict the people of Ashdod and the nearby villages with a plague of tumors. And when the people realized what was happening, they cried out, we can't keep the Ark of God here any longer. He is against us. We will all be destroyed, and so will our God Dagon. So they called together the rulers of the 5 cities and said, what should we do with the Ark? And the rulers discussed it and replied, move it to the city of Gath. Move it to the city of Gath. So they moved the Ark to the city of Gath, and when the Ark arrived at Gath, the Lord began afflicting its people with plagues and tumors, and there was great panic. So they sent the ark to the city of Ekron. But when they saw it coming, they cried out, oh, they're bringing the ark here too to kill us. So the people summoned the rulers again and begged, please send the ark back to the people, or it's going to kill us all, for the plagues have already begun. And there was great fear sweeping across the city, and those that didn't die were afflicted with tumors. Then in verse 1 of chapter 6, it says, the ark of the Lord remained, this is key, in the Philistine territory for 7 months. 7 months. Imagine knowing how to fix a problem, and instead of doing it for 7 months, you do something else. You do either the opposite or something that's not what you're supposed to be doing. The people of the Philistines, they knew exactly what to do. I read it 3 times. Oh man, the ark, it's here to kill us. Oh, it's the ark of the people of Israel. We need to send it back. Oh, the ark. And what did they keep doing? They kept moving it from city to city, expecting different results, right? There's that whole, what is the definition of badness? Doing the same thing over and over again, trying to, thinking, getting the different results. And they're doing the same thing over and over again, hoping for different results. And we read later, finally later, they turn it over after 7 months. But it boggled me that they would struggle with this, knowing exactly how to fix the problem, and they didn't do it. But then I remembered, oh yeah, I do that all the time. Well, you fast forward to John, again in our reading today, and Jesus is about to feed the 5,000, right? A huge miracle. He'd been preaching and teaching, and there's this great multitude of people, and they were hungry, and the disciples were like, what should we do? We can't feed them all. And Jesus says, hold on a second, do we have any resources? And Andrew says, well, there's this kid's lunch. I stole it. So Andrew's basically a bully, right? And he steals this kid's lunch. And he says, Jesus, we have some fish and some bread. What can we do? And so Jesus has very specific instructions. And he says, have the people sit down, let them eat what they want. When they're done, gather every piece of food you can find, every leftover piece, and bring it back. And what ended up happening was those tiny loaves and fish turned into 12 baskets left over of bread, right? And it was this cool moment because these guys, at first, they pushed back, we can't do this. But then they jumped on board. And when they did, and they followed God's instructions, Jesus' instructions, this great miracle happened, right? And it reminds me that you and I have these opportunities every single day to follow or don't follow, to continue to do the same things we've been doing, hoping for different results, or getting mad when things don't pan out the way we want. I remember it as I was preparing this devotion for you guys. I hadn't planned on doing it from underneath my wife's car, but such is life sometimes. And it reminded me of changing tires. I've changed a lot of tires on my cars. For some reason, I am a road magnet for debris, and I run over everything. I don't know why. It's not that I'm not paying attention. They'll just fly off other cars, or I'll hit a screw or something. So I've changed a lot of tires on the side of a road. And I remember the first time changing a tire, I knew the instructions, right? You're supposed to, pull the jack out, loosen the lug nuts, put on the e-brake, put the jack underneath a piece of metal, a frame of the car, not a piece of plastic, et cetera, et cetera. And the first time in, I just kind of put the jack somewhere, and I started jacking it up, and the jack fell over. Luckily, I wasn't under the car, so no damage, no problem. It just put the jack back up. Changed the tire eventually. Second time around, it was a few years later, different car, same results. I had a flat tire, and I pulled out the jack, and this time I put it in, on a framing piece, started to raise it, but I didn't put the e-brake on because, I'm like, how am I on a flat piece of ground? This, what's the point? Why do I need an e-brake? And so I jacked it up, and sure enough, the car slowly fell over, but this time my jack broke because the weight of the car bent the base of it. So now I couldn't raise my car again. Luckily I had AAA, but man, stupid mistake, knowing what I should be doing, and I didn't do it anyways. So the third time, a few years later, different car, same results, ran over a porcupine or something, I don't know. And I'm on the side of the road, and I'm getting ready to change the tire, and I started to jack it up, and I'm like, oh, e-brake. And so I put the e-brake on, jacked up the car, changed the tire, no problems. Nothing. Got back in my car, drove to my destination. It's funny, it took me almost 4 times, because I almost forgot that third time, but 3 times before I finally got the message, proper procedure, right? And I look at these Philistines, and I know they weren't believers in God, but they were believers in common sense, and even their hearts and their minds and their rulers all said the same thing, this ark is the problem, but they chose not to do anything about it. I think we have these problems. I think we have these moments in our lives every single day where God says, just do it this way. And we think, we'll do it our way again. I think this time it'll work. And then we get frustrated when it doesn't. And so my encouragement to you this morning, right when you get off here, I want you to just spend a few moments before whatever it is that you're doing, the next thing that you're doing, whether if it's going to work or preparing dinner or going to bed. I don't know when you're watching this, but whenever you're watching this, before you do the next thing, I want you to just stop. And I want you to just ask God, what do I need to change? What behavior do I need to change? How do I get to a point where I am following your commands, I'm loving you with all my heart, mind, and soul, and I'm loving others as myself? Those are the things that Jesus asked us to do first and said were the most important. And so what are those things that you are not doing and then you're expecting different results? Just spend a few moments, and I don't know what that is. I don't know your heart. Only God knows your heart. And it could be anything from how much you pray to how much you read your Bible to how you talk to people around you, how you are at work, how you are at home. Maybe it's the way you tithe or the way you don't tithe. Maybe it's the way that you should be, reaching out to others. I don't know. It's you know, and God knows. And so spend some time just asking God right now to open your heart, open your mind, open your eyes, letting you see where you need to change. And then do it. Don't be like these Philistines where everything's falling apart and you know exactly what you're supposed to be doing, but you're like, no, I'm going to try this instead. Don't be like those guys. Be like the disciples that followed Jesus' instructions after he told them, follow my instructions. All right, that's it for today. Hopefully some of this found you well. I'm excited to see what's going to happen in the next few months. I'm hopeful that we'll one day be able to hang out with each other, and I don't know when we'll be able to high five or hug, but at least we'll get to see each other. And so I'm excited for that day. Have a great one, and I'll catch you guys later.